We've all heard the expression, don't do the crime if you can't do the time, but the man you're about to meet is serving 55 years for selling weed while carrying a gun.
My name is Weldon Angelos. I'm from Salt Lake City, Utah. I was raising a family, feeding my kids, and working on my music career.
My name is Muta Bill, was known as Napoleon, former member of the Tupac Outlaws.
I got a plot to get rich, take that picture. I was raised on the streets.
First time I met Weldon, man, I would say about 18, 19 years ago. And we hit it off and got involved in music. He started his own underground record label, so he used to fly me to Utah a lot.
We were together all the time. We was making records, you know what I mean? We was putting it down.
Hey, yo, Hollis, give us some of that G shit.
I was working with Hollis heavy, man, because I was loving his music. He was standing at the spot, and Weldon was with him, and it was fun, it was fly. That's why I did a record with him. I think we was probably gonna do 2 or 3 records together.
So I got an album with Snoop getting ready to come out, but at the time I still got to pay my bills. I got kids, so I was selling weed on the side. Eminem was on tour, so we went to go visit his group. And we were leaving there, I get this call from this guy I knew from back when I was like 15 or 16 years old. He's fresh out of prison. He's like, can you help me? I went and did like 3 sales for like $300 worth of weed 3 times. And that's where my federal case started.
The police caught wind. They set up 3 stings, buying about $1,000 worth of marijuana from Angelos. During the deals, police say Angelos had a gun in his possession. The critical detail that made this case so extreme.
Now they entered this new gun allegation. Now I'm facing 100 years.
If he had been an aircraft hijacker, he would have gotten 24 years in prison. If he'd been a terrorist, he would have gotten 20 years in prison. If he was a child rapist, he would have gotten 11 years in prison. And now I'm supposed to give him a 55-year sentence?
At first I didn't believe it. I'm like, okay, I hear you tell me this, but this is America, this doesn't happen. I know dudes that killed someone over parking stalls and got out in 8 years. So I'm like, this doesn't happen.
Under federal mandatory minimum sentencing laws, Angelos was facing 55 years for the gun and marijuana charges combined. He was a first-time offender.
I don't know what that was based off of, but he got a whole lot of time, and you know, for the crime, it just didn't fit.
I felt like hip-hop was on trial. They actually introduced the music into evidence. My prosecutor's closing argument, you know how he started out with? He said, shaking the Fed, making the bread. I'm undercover, I'll do it under your nose. Those are Mac Dre's lyrics from the album that me and Hollis produced.
Prison is supposed to be for rehabilitation, right? It's supposed to I'm gonna remove you from society from a period of time for you to get your act together so you can function again in the real world. But for a cat that ain't never really got in trouble, you give him 55?
Do you ever think about him?
Yeah, I do think about Angelo. I sometimes drive on the interstate by the prison where he's held, and I think that wasn't the right thing to do, and the system forced me to do it.
So wait, if my math is right here, this low-level pot dealer received the exact same sentence as would an airplane hijacking, child-raping terrorist, a person so evil, I legitimately don't know if one has ever existed.
I have yet to meet a single person, male or female, Democrat or Republican, old or young, who thinks that that sentence was correct.
Senator Mike Lee became a strong advocate for me. He wrote a letter to President Obama seeking an immediate release.
Well, let's face it seems like Republicans and Democrats cannot agree on anything. A lot of them agree on this.
I support this not in spite of my status as a conservative Republican, but because of it.
You've got the NAACP and the Koch brothers to talk about how Congress can pass meaningful criminal justice reform this year.
I never thought the Koch brothers would ever want to help someone like me. So it was shocking, it was a surprise.
When I first heard about Weldon's sentence, it was incredible. I thought something must be wrong. It's more than twice what the typical terrorist gets? I mean, this is outrageous.
It was heartbreaking to see that, to see his young boys, to see his sister Lisa. And so that led us to get more and more involved. The whole system's out of whack, and at the end of the day, the criminal justice system is just another failed big government program that picks winners and losers, destroys lives, destroys families. Weldon was lucky. He had a lot of people pulling for him and was able to get out, but there's hundreds, if not thousands, of others in prison still, nonviolent, low-level offenders.
We have husbands and fathers, sons, nephews, uncles, brothers, who have been locked up for years, sometimes decades at a time, when the circumstances often don't warrant it.
And sometimes the time doesn't fit the crime, and you just take the deal because you're trying to hurry up and get out. But at the end of the day, if you're not represented the right way, you're not gonna make the right decision.
If you get rid of mandatory minimums, you also get rid of prosecutorial misconduct in a number of ways, because now they don't have the power to be vindictive and to give people these long sentences. If you refuse a plea offer, prosecutors can say, okay, I'm gonna enhance you with these mandatory minimums. Instead of the 5-year offer, now you're gonna get 30 because you said no to me. We're taking that away when we get rid of mandatory minimums.
Throughout our history, whether that starts with eliminating slavery, the civil rights movement, the women's movement, gay rights movement, all these movements, they succeeded because large groups of people decided this was an injustice. And all sorts of people who didn't agree maybe on much else, but agreed this was an injustice that needed to be eliminated, and eliminated now.
I thought it was a great move, a positive move, being that they have so much power and so much connection, for them to be a voice for people who have no power and no connection. So it was a plug for those who are unplugged.
We need all the help we can get, and Snoop Dogg, if he's willing to roll up his sleeves and work for this, then welcome to the party. God bless you.
We're America. You know what I'm saying? We have more people in prison than the rest of the modern world, and that's not America to me. So that's what I want to do. I want to reform the system, and whatever I can do to help, I'm going to do it.